We, the activists of KYS, today we had gathered at the Sri Lankan High Commission here in New Delhi to submit a memorandum regarding our raising concern over the violation of citizen rights in Sri Lanka. The way that the Sri Lankan government, led by Ranil Wickremesinghe, has launched an arbitrary and repressive attack on the struggling citizens is highly condemnable. And here in India, we see several parallels being drawn. The way that a police state is being formed in Sri Lanka to repress any voices of dissent, even if they are talking about the very basic needs concerning food items, concerning shortages of electricity, concerning shortages of fuel, medicine. Such basic demands are being treated almost as if it's treason. We see how capitalist anti-people governments everywhere have time and again used these preventive terrorism provisions which label citizens as terrorists simply for asking for their very basic rights. So what we are seeing right now in Sri Lanka is highly condemnable, and it is something that we see a repeat of in several places with capitalist governments in power who only work to safeguard the interests of a small elite minority of the rich. They continue to take these measures against the most vulnerable, the most exploited people, and we stand in strong opposition to that. And the politically conscious community here in India, the students, people associated with the workers' movement, we take inspiration from the struggle of people in Sri Lanka, and we extend our deepest solidarity with them.
We are students and we are part of Krantikari Yuva Sangathan. We came here to the High Commission of Sri Lanka today to submit a memorandum to the High Commission regarding the increasing ongoing arrests and state repression on the Sri Lankan people who have been protesting, who have been struggling for their basic concerns and for their basic demands. And much like in Sri Lanka, in today as well, as has always been the norm, every possible attempt was made against stopping us to even reach the High Commission, and even to submit a printed memorandum seems like a threat to the Indian government, much like it seems like a threat to the Sri Lankan government. The people's in the same manner that the people's voice being peacefully raised, people's concerns being peacefully raised by the struggling people of Sri Lanka is not bearable to the government there. The similar kind of similar kind of scenario is can be seen in India as well. We have raised these concerns to the High Commission of Sri Lanka today, that the Janatha Aragalaya, or the people's movement of Sri Lanka, which has been raging for quite some time, and today we are witnessing that increasingly students, protesters, common people who have been protesting peacefully in the most unarmed manner are not just being attacked in the middle of the night by the Sri Lankan government, by the Sri Lankan police. Increasingly attempts are being made to establish a sort of a police state in Sri Lanka, where people who have been in the most non-violent manner raising their demands to access to their demands for access to basic essential commodities, to basic essential commodities like medicine, cooking oil, gas and fuel. Instead of catering to their demands, instead of listening to their concerns, they are being even after as we know from reports from the news every day, the international community is quite dismayed at how not just the government is sidelining such very essential and basic demands and concerns of the people, but is all the more going on to repress the people's voices by imposing draconian laws on them, by arresting them under preventive acts and labeling them as the protesting people as terrorists. Arbitrarily, laws like Prevention of Terrorism Act are being imposed on students, on people, on organizations who have been peacefully protesting and raising the concerns and ensuring that their concerns reach the parliament, their concerns reach the president. But very conveniently, the president, Ranil Wickremesinghe government, which has been, as the international community, community has seen it, the very illegitimate way in which the Ranil Wickremesinghe government has been not just elected, but it has continued to show its illegitimacy in the manner in which people's concerns are continuously being sidelined and repressed in a most violent manner. So from here, we are raising these concerns that such kind of a state repression needs to be stopped. The Sri Lankan government needs to take account of it, and also the international bodies need to take account of this. And it should be the local ruling economic elite of Sri Lanka and international bodies like IMF should stop their influence on the economic policy making, which is anti-Sri Lankan people, should come to a stop. And from here, from now onwards, it should be the responsibility of the international bodies who claim themselves as human rights defenders, and also the Sri Lankan government, to ensure that the people who have been in the most brazen manner been imposed with or labelled as terrorists and have been arrested under draconian laws as political prisoners, they should be immediately and unconditionally released. And at the same time, the state of emergency which has been imposed on the people arbitrarily, it needs to be repealed. And we also demand that a moratorium should be passed on this Prevention of Terrorism Act. And at the same time, the military, the kind of a police state that Sri Lanka, the administration and the Wickremesinghe government is trying to make out of Sri Lanka should come to a stop, and the military should be made to return back to the barracks. And such repressive measures on people, on peacefully protesting people and organizations, should come to an end. And there should be no change in Sri Lanka, whether it is at policy level making and whether it is at the level of even lending an ear to the people's voices and their concerns and protests. No change should take place without involving a discussion and a consent with the people who have been suffering and struggling for so long. And for that, we have raised these concerns, and at the same time, as part of international community and as people who will not tolerate injustice, whether it is within our boundary or outside our boundary, we have to make sure that whether this kind of injustice against peacefully unarmed people, whether they are part of Sri Lanka or any other country, injustice should not be tolerated. Such brazen violation of human rights should not be tolerated. Such brute repression, especially by state authorities, should not be tolerated, and it will not be tolerated, and it will be in the most democratic manner fought against.